What's up everybody, and welcome back to my channel. This is another video about Netflix's hit show Indian Matchmaking that I just cannot get enough of. The breakout star from the show, or should I say breakout villain, is Aparna, and I just wanted to give you guys my opinions about her just because I feel like she's just such a nuanced, complex, multifaceted woman and character that I don't have a straight opinion about her, and I think that that is exactly what she is supposed to be, and I think that that's what we all are. Like, there's no black and white. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people do kind of put her in a black or white box in regards to their opinions of the way that she presents herself on the show. But I think, you know, if you really take a good look at her and approach her from like a good faith perspective, where you kind of see her as humorous, but like in the form of dry humor, you might kind of change your mind a little bit in regards to her. So when I first saw her on the show, I instantly picked up on her humor. I was like, it's dry humor, it's deadpan, I get it. Literally one of the first things she says is that she wants a husband, but she doesn't want someone who's around 24/7. She's like, you know, like, are they supposed to be around you 24/7? I would hate that, which I think a lot of people, or, you know, most people would agree with. Like, sure, most people would word it more softly, but dry humor is just that, it's dry. And then she goes, you know, what's like the greatest, you know, kind of struggle in my life right now? It's the fact that I've only been in 40 countries and not 41. Every day I think about that. I was like, girl, you are so freaking funny. I also love that she knows what she is looking for in a partner. She says that the person cannot be a sports fanatic because she does not at all care about that. You know, she also talks about how she typically goes to one date spot because she knows there the date will only last about 55 minutes, and that's enough time to determine whether or not you do want to go again with someone, because sometimes guys do just talk your ears off and you find yourself spending a lot longer with them than you care to. So it was perfect to do that as well. Like, I thought that she was so like sharp about everything and so you know, straightforward, which I really did appreciate. Like, I actually even agreed with her disinterest in men who are fixated on being the funniest person in the room. Those people who literally cannot breathe without like a whole room paying attention to them and laughing at them are typically not that funny, typically extremely annoying, and typically extremely insecure as well. So I get it that she does not want that in a mate. When she gave her actual list of requirements to Sima auntie, I thought that she was actually quite reasonable in what she was looking for in a partner. However, I could start to see why she was still single when she went on about the person that she dumped because he didn't know that there were salt flats in Bolivia. So she tells the story, oh, like, I exhausted my network, like trying to get connected to guys through my friends. There was this one guy in particular, he was a pretty good match for me. We went out and I knew that I didn't want to go out with him anymore because he didn't know that salt flats have Bolivia. I was telling him about wanting to go there at that time, and he was like, salt flats, Bolivia, what? And I knew from then that I could no longer go out with him. I'm like, listen, you don't have to be particularly bright to know that there are salt flats in Bolivia. You just have to be particularly fascinated by salt flats, you know, geography, Bolivia in particular as a country, or environmental things, you know. So for her to eliminate someone who, you know, in her own words, was a good candidate just based off something so superficial was quite dumb to me, in my opinion, because listen, how many people do you meet who go, oh my God, I'm dying to go to Bolivia for vacation? I've personally never in my nearly 30 years have met someone who, first of all, talked about Bolivia, second of all, talked about wanting to go to vacation to Bolivia. It's just not a country that really crosses people's minds. So I don't understand why that was her kind of deal breaker with this person. It's not like he didn't know who Barack Obama was, or, you know, how many days there are in a year. Like, this was just a trivial matter. Anyway, moving along, she claims that there's nothing she needs to change or grow to be a better partner for someone else. She says that, yes, sure, I can make certain kinds of compromises, like for the betterment of us as a unit, but there are also parts of me that are already formed and no one is going to change about me. And I was like, that is an amazing take to have in terms of relationships. Like, yes, you know, sure, you can compromise on certain things. Like, you know, maybe the person that you're with really wants for you to, I don't know, go to a soccer game with them like every once in a while, like maybe 3 times a year or something. Would it really kill you to do that? No, like they like it, they want to have your company there, sure. I could totally see her doing that even though she doesn't love sports that much. And then I felt like her being rigid and saying that there's some parts of me that are formed, like maybe she doesn't believe in going to a place of worship every week. You know, if someone she were with told her that it was a deal breaker for him if she didn't accompany him to a place of worship every week, I'm sure she would say no to that if she didn't want to. So I think that, you know, she did kind of present the two healthy give and take, and the no, this is me and I'm not changing this aspect of my life that everybody should have. Like, you should not be 1000% malleable to be in a relationship, because you know, at that point, if you are, then it kind of means that you don't have your own kind of identity and you don't have, you know, a sense of like backbone or spine, for lack of a better word, to stand in who you are as an independent person when you're in a relationship. And I think that's important. And I like that she was like the type of person who laid that out quite plainly. If anything, I thought it was actually Sima auntie who kept kind of low-key sabotaging Aparna and being a little bit, I don't want to say misogynistic, but like a little male identified in regards to the way that she handled Aparna and treated Aparna as well. So, you know, the other women and the men as well were given 3 options to choose from for who they want to go with on their first date, but Aparna was not given that opportunity. Sima auntie was like, no, Aparna is too picky. If I give her 3 options, she'll never pick one, which is not true, because Aparna was actually quite decisive. She knew exactly what she was looking for in a mate. So I feel like if Sima gave her the opportunity to choose from 3, she would have chosen one person that suited her best in that moment and gone for it. The first person that Sima sets her up with was named Srini, and he's an aimless podcast host and author who didn't figure himself out and like have enough money to move out until his late 30s, and he doesn't even have a 5-year plan as like a 39-year-old man. And you know, I think it would be fairly obvious to us as viewers of the show, seeing how sure of herself and you know, full of direction Aparna was, that this would not be a match. Like, he would give her anxiety. He would give the average like woman with a plan anxiety, because you need someone who's on the same page as you, and this guy was not at all that. Despite her mild reservations, Aparna was pretty positive about meeting this guy, recognizing that her dating pool wasn't going to be that big as a 34-year-old Indian woman. And so, you know, she even described him when he came to meet her family for the first time as handsome, confident, and engaging. And he took her out axe throwing after meeting with the family, and she wasn't even good at it at all, but she was still positive. She still tried until the very end, where she finally scored. She didn't actually even get turned off by Srini until they started talking about serious life things, and he talked about how he didn't start making real money until recently to move out of his parents' house, and this guy is like literally like 40 years old, and that he's just winging his way through life, doesn't know what he wants to do 5 years from now. Listen, Aparna told Sima auntie that she wanted to get married, she wanted to settle down, so why would Srina not screen this guy with these questions and realize that he is not the right fit for Aparna? She does not have time to waste on something like this. You know, otherwise she did give him a fair shot. She was also fair in describing those issues about him to Sima. She didn't put him down. It was just her mom who called him a loser, which was really uncalled for. You know, and at this point, Sima kept calling her negative already, and I didn't really get why, because at this point, Aparna was incredibly reasonable. She gave her a list of things she wanted in a mate that was perfectly acceptable. Like, there's nothing crazy in that list except for like the salt flats thing, you know, like I was like, whatever. And she was extremely positive while on the date, trying the activity, not complaining about, you know, not being the greatest at it, and recognized by the end that they were not compatible and decided to respectfully part ways like anybody else would do. And yet Sima called her negative. Why? In my opinion, it wasn't until her one-on-one confessional with the camera where she kind of like takes a few jabs at Sima auntie, where she goes, listen, it's your job to find me a husband, like, you know, chill girl, this is the first one, it's okay, we'll see where it goes from there. Maybe it wasn't the greatest start, but like, you know, I'm sure you could have seen where some of those pieces might have matched what you were looking for. Next, Sima sets her up with a guy named Dilip, who I don't think would be a match for any woman on the show, but I digress. Anyway, they grab drinks on a cute patio, and Aparna takes an instant liking to him because he went to an Ivy League university just like her. But she kept rambling the entire time, cutting him off a few times and insulting his choices in vacation spots. and lengths. So like he asks her like, you know, about beaches. What do you think about beaches? She's like, oh, like I hate beaches. Like don't leave me there for more than 3 hours, 2 hours, like the sand and stuff like that. Like I felt like, you know what? It's a first date. Like maybe you're being sarcastic and stuff about like a truth, which is that you don't like beaches, but you could have been a bit more positive in describing that. Like, you know, beaches are not my favorite things. I can stay there for like maximum 2 hours, but I prefer like, you know, other stuff. You know, I like the water. I used to live on a boat, but I prefer being around water in a different way other than, you know, staying on the beach just because of the pebbles and the dirt and all that stuff. Like, I feel like that would have been perfectly fine. The guy was like, what's the issue? You don't like the ocean? She's like, of course I like the ocean. Like, I used to live on a boat. Like, obviously I like the ocean. And I was like, listen, sis, calm down a little bit. It's the first date. He doesn't know you yet. You are coming across a little negative here. Then the guy goes, okay, then, you know, if you had 10 days to relax, how would you spend them? And then again, she gets really negative and rude for like no reason. She goes, 10 days, like 10 days to relax. Like what's going on in your life that you need 10 days to relax? That's weird. What's wrong with you? Which was just such a really hostile, unnecessarily hostile response to a very innocuous question. She goes, 3 days is her max for relaxation. And I felt like, listen, you know, I think a lot of people typically kind of, you know, get a little bit antsy after like what, like a week of vacation, and that's fair, but you don't have to ask someone what's wrong with you, what's going on in your life if you need 10 days of vacation. You could have just said, you know what, I tend to get a little bit antsy after like 3 days, you know, like it's a little bit more than enough for me, but if I had 10 days, maybe I would like do a mix of things, like check in on work email sometimes. Don't kill me, but I would. You know, like be a little bit more playful than negative and interrogative. Clearly, Dilip felt the same way because he said that like he only felt relaxed when the date was over. And you know, I could totally see why after watching the way she presented herself there. And then as they're walking out, she bitches about mountain climbing in Patagonia, which, you know, is like, listen, that is so much complaining for a first date, like chill. Then she gets set up with Shekhar, who's a fellow lawyer with his own firm. They go out for drinks and she talks about growing up in Dubai, and he goes, really, like I've always wanted to go there, which you would think would be, you know, the lead into, oh, like, why do you laugh about it? I could tell you a little bit about it because, you know, growing up, I can give you tips. She goes, really? You want to go there? Why? I don't know why anyone would want to go to Dubai. I mean, I guess it's like Disneyland for adults. So if you're into that kind of thing, I was like, girl, everything does not have to be shot down and negative. I am seeing why people on Twitter don't like you. You truly are, you know, and why Sima Auntie is saying the things that she is now, because yeah, you are coming across pretty freaking negative now. Like everything has to be, why do you have that opinion? That opinion is wrong. And let me tell you why that's wrong. I've experienced it. So, you know, and my experience is the end all be all of life. And because I don't like XYZ, you shouldn't like XYZ, something wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. Like she's just very attack doggish. And yeah, I didn't really appreciate it. Shekhar then navigates the conversation towards like his love for practicing law. He's like, you know, I really love it. And she goes, you do? He goes, yeah, like, do you love being a lawyer? Not particularly. That's it. Not one single positive thing about being a lawyer. Then he goes, okay. And then like, you know, they talk about where they've been on vacation, and one of the countries on her list was South Africa that she's visited. And then he goes, oh, like I've always wanted to go to South Africa too. What was it like? She's like, touristy places freak me out. Don't love it that much. And I'm like, girl, first of all, I don't understand why people feel this way, because like, do you think you're above other tourists? Like you are the tourist that makes it a touristy place. So why do people say stuff like that? It's so irritating. Anyway, then she talks about also having visited Cuba, and you know, he tries to find something positive about that. And of course, Aparna tries to find something negative about it. She's like, oh my God, like the trafficking there was crazy. That human trafficking, you know, my friends and I were almost trafficked as well. And she just goes in and in. I felt so unsafe, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, she could not find a positive thing about any like country, any like her job, nothing. So I could see why these men did not want to continue seeing her. So I went from being like, oh, like she's misunderstood because she's got dry, sarcastic humor, deadpan delivery. Sima Auntie was judging her too harshly, you know, despite her reasonable expectations. I don't know why people on Twitter are so mean to this girl. She seems reasonable to me, to being like, oh my God, now I can see why people feel the way that they do. Like, yeah, she is pretty negative. She does lead with negativity in every conversation with every single suitor, and that is why she's not that palatable to them or the audience. But, you know, I feel like even in some of those negative moments, she was being a little bit sarcastic, but you do have to allow people to warm up to you before you kind of use that kind of humor on them anyway. You know, but she did also have some positive notes about both of the guys as well. Like, she wasn't like, they don't meet my criteria, I never want to see them again. No, like, she went out, she had her friends at her house, and she talked about, you know, how she liked both the guys, like there were positive aspects to them, that she could see why Sima would set them up. I think that she and Dilip were mutually not into the idea of seeing each other again for a second date, but she did want another date with Shekhar, and he was the one who decided against it because he didn't feel like they had that much in common outside of being attorneys, and he also felt like he was too laid back for her and that he needed someone a little bit more positive. I personally think that her being rejected by Shekhar was the wake-up call that Aparna needed to kind of work on herself a little bit more, because, you know, from there she does transform for the rest of the season to being a more positive and likable character, you know. I think she really realized that she was not coming across well and that she wanted to improve upon that. And so what she did was she went to see the astrologist that Sima sent her to. She connected with another guy who had his own like kind of startup company. She took a big interest in his startup. She was very positive and encouraging of him in his startup. Then he took her to goat yoga. She never once freaked out about the goats being all over her while she was trying to do the exercise. She was very like positive and like, you know, laughy about it and everything. And they just kept doing their phone dates and stuff, and everything seemed to be on an upward trajectory. So that's why I don't have a black or white opinion of Aparna. You know, I see her as all of these different things that make up a whole person, and that's okay. You know, sure, she is kind of negative and pissy. Yeah, but aren't we all in some respects? Yes, she is very dry humor, sarcastic, but we kind of all are in some ways as well. I felt like her checklist, again, was super reasonable in what she was looking for. She went into dates with a positive mindset, giving men the benefit of the doubt. She always had something positive to say about everybody that she went out with, even if she was not 1000% convinced about them. And we saw that with Srini, and then we saw that again with Dilip. Like, she was a pretty, like, I think that Sima Auntie was a little bit harsh in her descriptions of Aparna, you know, just based off what I saw of her on the show. Again, I'm not saying that she was never once bitchy. I gave you guys many like concrete instances of her being bitchy and negative, but that was not the totality of who she was, and therefore I don't want to sit here and say that she was this mean, nasty villain of the show. No, I think in fact that she was the one who was allowed to be as multi-dimensional as possible, and was also the person who exhibited the most growth throughout the series. So I really did appreciate Aparna's character in Indian Matchmaking for that reason. Guys, how did you feel about Aparna while you watched the show? Do you think that she got a fair shot from Sima Auntie and the viewers? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.